The Ardeep Adventures by Ayesha Greymorn. Falorm, the realm of the Three Crowns. The Horde of the Wastes. That is what the soldiers called the Orcish armies which came down from the mountains to rule the lowlands. No matter how many times they were driven back, they would return again and again. They sought to destroy all our cities and eat all the people. In their wisdom, the elves of Ardeep, together with the dwarves of Dardoth, opened their borders to the gnomes of Doldabun, the halflings of Old Meriton, and the humans of Deliberium, to call together the Council of Axe and Arrow. In that time, all the races would come together to form the kingdom of Falorm. Falorm grew to be a mighty kingdom and drove the orc hordes back into the mountains forever. It was decreed that, in these times of peace, a son of men and a daughter of elves shall be wed, and both shall preside over all of Falorm. The daughters of elves. Unto Lord Edremir and Lady Yeisia, a daughter was born to become the princess of Falorm, and they called her Ayesha, whose name meant life. However, Yeisia worried that her daughter would be lonely, and so they bore a second daughter, and they called her Rebecca, whose name meant beautiful. Both would see their years unfold in the forests of Ardeep, and many adventures did await them. The story is incomplete. Several pages are missing from this section of the book. The Minotaur under the world. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a castle. Every night before she slept, she would hear a strange groaning coming from under the floor. When the young princess asked the guards about the noise, they told her about the Minotaur. The Minotaur, they said, roams the catacombs beneath the castle. He is a nasty beast who enjoys keeping little princesses up at night. The little princess grew upset and began to formulate a plan. If this Minotaur were going to continue living in her castle, he would have to follow the same laws as everyone else. And the laws clearly state, don't wake up the princess. So one night, she made her way down into the catacombs. It was very dark down there, but the princess had a few spells that would light the way. She had searched for hours, and despite her best efforts, she could not find that noisy monster. I'm so tired, she thought to herself. The princess could not go any further. She pulled her robes tightly around herself and fell fast asleep. When she woke up, she was covered in filth. I'm so dirty, she thought to herself. The brave princess decided to continue her search. Eventually, she realized that she had become hopelessly lost. She started to miss the comforts of her castle. I'm so thirsty, she thought to herself. Suddenly, something caught her eye. A bright light was shining through a crack in a nearby wall. The princess cast a powerful spell and destroyed the wall. Behind it was a glowing river. I'm so thirsty, she thought to herself once again, and so she drank from the river. As she drank, the sound of rushing waters echoed throughout the cavern. I'm so filthy, she thought to herself once again, and so she bathed in the river. As she bathed, she suddenly realized that there was no Minotaur at all. The sound she had heard was nothing more than the sound of the river. Eventually, the princess found her way back to the castle. Never again was she troubled by the sounds of the Minotaur's groan. Instead, she was lulled to sleep by the sounds of the rushing river. Will-o-wisps, the ghosts of Ardeep. The princess set out to find her little sister. It was late, and she should have been home hours ago. She ran out into the night, armed only with her most powerful spells. The only light in the forest was cast by the pale full moon. Now her quest was twice as dangerous, for it is a well-known fact that all lycanthropes hunt during the full moon. It wasn't long before the princess found her little sister frolicking through the forest. Look, sister, will-o-wisps, she exclaimed. The princess seemed very irritated at her sister's carelessness. Certainly, mother and father would be worried sick if they were to discover that both their children were out here alone. "Come along, little sister," the princess demanded. "They want us to dance with them," the younger girl called back. "We don't have time," she scolded. She stepped forward, reaching out toward her little sister. Suddenly, 5 flickering lights danced around her. They filled her eyes with their swirling light. She found herself unable to look away. "Come, dance, follow," the wispy voices echoed in her mind. Before she knew it, they were both dancing after the hums and shimmering sounds of the wisps. As dawn arrived, they were snapped from their daze by the sounds of ferocious creatures at their backs. "Hurry!" the princess shouted, but to her amazement, they found themselves just a short way off from the castle gates. "Thank you, Will-o-wisps," the little girl cheered as her older sister looked on in amazement. "Hurry now, off to bed with you before our parents discover us gone." The prisoner below. "Father, who is the boy that lives in the Undercroft?" I asked. "What do you know of him?" my father replied with a glare. "Only that he has been down there with his books for many years," I lied. "That boy is not to be disturbed. He minds his studies, and you should mind yours," he scolded. I did not tell father that I had first met the boy 1 year ago. I did not tell him that I had seen the archmages of Forlorn visit him every other week. I did not tell him of our conversations, nor did I tell him of the tomes I had borrowed from him. I did not tell father that this boy and I share the same affinity for magic. I did not tell him that I introduced him to my little sister 3 months ago. Nor did I tell him that she claims to be in love. I didn't tell him that I was happy for them. "Father, is he dangerous?" I asked. He sighed and said all mages are dangerous if they cannot control their power. "Is he free to leave?" I asked. "What?" he nearly screamed. "Why this sudden fascination with the mage?" In truth, I only wanted to see my sister happy. I didn't want her to sneak around in the shadows any longer. I wanted our father to know that he was not a secret to be kept under lock and key. Although his cell was not made of iron bars and his door was without a lock, it was always under guard. It was only when our friend Nevin was on duty that she would have any respect with the mage. The 3 of them seem to get along so well. They all have each other, and I have my books. I am happy for them, but I wonder when my prince will come. The Glowing Man. Years ago, the princess woke in the middle of the night to the sound of a voice in her room. She was startled and pulled the blankets tight around her. When she was satisfied that there was no one in the room with her, she slowly drifted back to sleep. The next night was the same. The princess woke to hear the same voice echoing through her room. "Come," it said. It must be the guard in the halls, she told herself, and then slowly drifted back to sleep. On the 3rd night, the same voice spoke again. "Dance," it said. Quickly, the princess jumped out of bed and opened the door. She looked up and down the halls, searching for the guard, but none could be seen. She climbed back into bed, and then slowly drifted back to sleep. On the 4th night, the princess woke to find her room lit brightly. As her vision cleared, she could start to make out the form of a man. His skin was glowing, and his voice called out to her yet again. "Follow," it said. "Who are you?" she said in a panic. Before she could get an answer, the man faded away. On the 5th night, the man returned. This time, however, the princess sat up to wait for him, just to be sure it wasn't a dream. Before the man could speak, she stood to her feet and asked boldly, Who are you?" "Your prince," the man replied. Suddenly, he faded from sight. The princess was intrigued by this ghostly figure and wanted to speak with him more. But how? She asked herself. On the 6th night, the princess prepared a spell that would hopefully allow the magical man to have the strength to stay a bit longer. As the man appeared in her room once again, she cast the spell. But all did not go according to plan. The man raised his arms and absorbed the magic. When the spell was exhausted, he spoke. "More," he said. "Who are you?" she asked. "More," he demanded. His voice shook the room, and the princess hid under her bed in fear. But this did not deter the glowing man. Each night he returned, and each night the princess would feed his seemingly endless hunger, until one day the man said, "Enough." "Who are you really?" she asked again. "I have filled you with my magic for weeks, and have yet to know your name." "I am your prince," he said. "I love you, and I wish to marry you." "But sir," she began, "I am not yet of an age to be married." "Then I will return for you, both when you are older and your magics are more powerful, so that you might sustain my life, and that I may make you a queen loved by all," he stated. Without another word, he vanished again. The princess sat alone in her room. She felt a great relief that she would soon have her prince, and become the rightful ruler of Forlorn. For the next 2 years she dedicated herself to strengthening her magical powers. During that time, she met a young man who lived in the undercroft of her castle. He too was a mage, and spent all his days trying to master the magic within him. Together they studied and trained with one another in secret. They became friends, and found enjoyment in one another's company. One day, the princess's little sister followed her to meet the boy in the undercroft as well, and they too became friends, and soon after fell in love. Finally, the day had arrived when the princess was old enough to be married. That night, she nervously waited in her bedchamber. When the man finally appeared, he again confessed his love for her, and told her that he would marry her and become one with her, just like in the fairy tales she had read when she was a child. "Join with me," he said. "No," she answered, for over the time that she had spent training, she had fallen in love with one of the guards of the castle. He was a man of her same age, and she longed to be with him instead. For her refusal, the man began to glow brighter and brighter until all of Ardeep became lost in its glow. When the man finally vanished, she found her castle in ruins, and the city had been set ablaze. Panic and terror gripped the people of Ardeep, for they had no idea what had occurred.